Guys, what's up? Darcy here at 6 Strings 9 Lives. So fresh off a few videos where I was talking about a bunch of my favorite debut albums that still remain my favorite album by those bands. But I think I said in the first video that I was not going to include any debut EPs or EPs period. But I thought, you know what? I better make a list of at least my favorite, or top 10 list of my favorite metal EPs of all time. Although on this list there is one that you can argue if you want to argue, is it metal? Back in the day, everything, we just called it metal. We didn't pick shit apart, or nobody had to be right, things like that. Could care less, don't want to waste time with that. But I thought I'm going to start off by showing my favorite EP of all time, work my way to number 5, and then 6 through 10, kind of wherever. So being a small list, I'm probably gonna miss a couple, and for various reasons. Maybe I got into them late, but these are kind of the 10 that I picked that still I go back to them. I love them, especially top 5. I go way back with most of them. So, but yeah, put a few in the comments that a few of your favorites, maybe a couple that you think are worthy of a list like this. But let's start off with, not only is this, well, we'll get to it. I'm just going to hold it up, then we'll talk. Here is my favorite EP of all time. This is Helloween, self-titled, released April 1985, and then later that year, a very important album got released. Very important to me anyways, and that is Walls of Jericho. I think it got released late October, early November of the same year. So for me, and it's just one big continuation. Absolutely love this. Flows right into Walls of Jericho. But a huge Kai Hansen fan. I am a huge Kai Hansen fan. You might already know that. Love when Kai's on vocals. But this stuff is, power metal. Sure, they got into that more starting on the Keepers album. But this is more speed metal to begin with. This EP and then Walls of Jericho. But back to what we're talking about, this EP. Starlight starts off with kind of a little bit of a humorous intro into, a Kai Hansen scream. And then everything kicks in, and then Kai's like, all right into those vocals. Into another great track, Murderer. Flip over to the B-side, Victim of Fate. If you've never for some reason not heard that song, it is a Helloween classic. And you know what? Great band overall. I love Michael on vocals, Andy Darris. I love what they're doing now as a 7-piece. Their last album was awesome. And if I was a betting man, there you will see a new Helloween album in 2025, followed by a massive tour. But there it is. If you ever have any six-string trivia, what's that guy's favorite EP of all time? There it is. All right, coming in number 2. Don't give a shit that this is a covers album, because you know what? At the time when it came out, I had no idea. I never even knew the songs, but I might have gave that away. But here's Metallica. Garage Days Revisited, the 598 EP. And like I said, I didn't know any of these songs back in the day, but I did know Metallica. And they have an absolute knack of making awesome cover songs, or doing awesome cover songs. And you know what? Getting some bands that we never heard of out there. Did I ever hear of Diamond Head before Metallica came along? No, I didn't. Anyways, Helpless, The Small Hours, The Wait, Crash Course in Brain Surgery, Last Caresses, Green Hell. Not a wasted second on this EP. Absolute must-have. If you're watching a metal video, you already know this info. Coming in at number 3. First discovered these guys on by one song, and that is Queen of the Reich, and that was on Canada's Much Music on the Pepsi Power Hour. Here is Queensrÿche self-titled EP. I know this cover is so plain, but I love it. The yellow, the purple mixed with the black, and what's on this album. Just, I don't know. I almost want to say at the time, ahead of its time. You know, you got some kind of Iron Maiden influences mixed in with Jeff's unreal vocals. But Queen of the Reich and The Lady Wore Black, just top-notch Queensrÿche songs. Then leading into some of my favorite Queensrÿche albums of all time, The Warning, Rage for Order, Operation Mindcrime, and I will even throw Empire in there. I know things were changing then, but it's still, definitely have to recognize that as a good album. All right, coming in at number 4, discovered this one way after the fact of discovering this band, but a couple of their, we don't need the suspense. Let's just hold it up. Here is, and I'll have to strategically hold this up. You never know with the YouTube, but here is Mercyful Fate, self-titled debut, EP from 1982, also known as the Nuns Have No Fun EP. Just, the beginnings of Mercyful Fate. I'm a huge, if you've watched me for any extended period of time, huge Mercyful Fate fan, and King Diamond. There's King right there. The classic guitar duo of Hank Sherman and Michael Denner. Timmy Hansen on bass, Kim Ruz on drums, Corpse Without a Soul, and then you have the Nuns Have No Fun. Great track. Love the riff on that. Doomed by the Living Dead, and then Devil Eyes. King just hitting those high notes, those high falsettos. But yeah, so I backtracked. I mean, I had already had Melissa and Don't Break the Oath, and then kind of went backwards and grabbed this. But yeah, great EP by Mercyful Fate. And then rounding out my top 5, this one's a must-have if you're a fan of any of the big 4, the North American or American big 4. But here is Slayer, Haunting the Chapel. Now this one to me was kind of a little bit of a stepping stone. I mean, if you know, well, obviously you probably know Show No Mercy was kind of rooted in new wave of British heavy metal. I'm not saying it was new wave of British heavy metal, but it's in there in that debut. But things changed a bit on this, and more of the direction that would become that Slayer sound is what I'm trying to say. On great tracks, and then obviously into, you know, Hell Awaits and Rain and Blood, and then the rest is history type of thing. But yeah, Chemical Warfare, Capture of Sin, and the title track Haunting the Chapel, all just awesome Slayer tracks. I think Chemical Warfare, they still play live. I mean, when they were still active, which hope, you know, when they play here, I think they're doing those festival dates soon. Probably you will hear Chemical Warfare. And then rounding this one is a like a bonus track version or whatever on vinyl. It includes Aggressive Perfector, which was first on one of the Metal Massacre, I forget which volume, but yeah, just classic Slayer. Excuse me. Battling a little bit of the allergies and the smoke. Where I live here in Canada, we get the smoke that's drifting in from those wildfires, and harvest is on. So yeah, feeling good today, but definitely a hard time of the year. All right, let's move on to the last 6. These ones are really in no particular order. Although this one does feature one of my favorite guitar players of all time, and that is Chris Oliva. May he rest in peace, from Savatage. This is The Dungeons Are Calling. So all the works on this album were recorded at the same time as their debut, Sirens, which I think came out in 83. This got released in 84 initially, and then I think reissued in 85, something like that. Some great tracks on here, which the title track, The Dungeons Are Calling, awesome. But my favorite 2 tracks, or my favorite track on this album, is called By the Grace of the Witch, and then City Beneath the Surface. If you know me, you know I'm a big Savatage fan. Yeah, sadly missed. What a guitar tone Chris had. Just, I've never heard anything like it to this day still. But yeah, great EP if you have not checked that out. Let's grab, okay, here's the one that's, you can argue if it's not metal. It doesn't matter to me. I don't care. Because when these guys first came out, it was one of the bands that came out of that scene that I thought, these guys are a little bit different. They're not, well, they're not grunge, that's for sure. But the EP I'm talking about is Alice in Chains, Jar of Flies. And yes, I know that the content of this album isn't really a metal. You know, it's kind of a laid-back approach to some awesome albums like Facelift and Dirt, which I still hold way up here to this day. But you got some great tracks on here. Nutshell, I Stay Away, and No Excuses. Those are the three absolute highlights on here. Love Alice in Chains, and even what they're doing today with their with William Duvall. And speaking of Alice in Chains, new Jerry Cantrell album coming out in October called I Want Blood. Looking forward to that one. Coming up next is one that I discovered later on in life, so probably past 5 or 6 years. And, excuse me, what I was going to tell you is I did not discover really this band until their latest album, and that's Possessed. And then I kind of backtracked and got everything, which isn't a lot. I mean, 3 studio albums and a couple of EPs, but Eyes of Horror, The Eyes of Horror by Possessed. So this one came out a year after Beyond the Gates. My copy is a kind of a split excuse me, CD. But The Eyes of Horror, produced by Joe Satriani. You probably know that name too. Just a solid 6-track EP. And I think, in my opinion, it's definitely better than Beyond the Gates. Is it as good as their new album? It could, yeah. It rivals their new album, but I absolutely love their newest album, what I'm trying to say. They're definitely due for a new album here in 2025, and I get to see them open up for Testament and Creator here in September, in probably about 3 weeks from now. So looking forward to that. But some great tracks on here. The title track, and then the opening track, Confessions, Storm in My Mind. If you've missed out on Possessed, the Eyes of Horror EP, check that one out. What do we got? 2 more. Now, I didn't discover this band until their second album. So this EP came out in between their first album and their second album, and their second album is called The American Way, and the band is Sacred Reich. And you know the EP now that I said it. Here is Surf Nicaragua. 2 absolutely standout tracks on here are the title track and One Nation. Draining You of Life is from really early Sacred Reich. I think they even had a demo EP come out. I'm not 100% sure on that, but and then you got a couple live tracks, Ignorance and Death Squad. But the price of admission alone, or worth the price of admission alone, is Surf Nicaragua and One Nation. Just superb, and I love this cover, love this artwork. That's yeah, definitely a great EP. And then last for today, any of the big German Big Four were bands that I discovered later on. I was always into my Metallicas, Megadeths, Anthrax, Slayers, Overkills, Testament, all that stuff. But through doing YouTube videos and stuff, I discovered all of the German thrash I have now for going on 5, 6, 7 years now. And here is a band that I absolutely love most of their stuff, I would say. And why I say that is because some of it's still really hard to get. But Sentence of Death from Destruction. Now, how metal is this cover? And this is I believe this is the European cover. There is another US or North American cover. I think it's a little more tamed down. And what I mean about maybe it has less, maybe very back in the day, I mean, the US, Canada, super sensitive, or too sensitive, but probably the bullet belts and the inverted crosses really bothered people, I guess. I don't know. Doesn't matter. This one, early Destruction, 1984. And then you go right into classics like Infernal Overkill from 85, Internal Devastation, and then right into one of my favorites, which is Release from Agony in 1987. Love that early Destruction. Great track listing. Of course, you have Schmier, bass and vocals, Mike Ziffringer, who has since retired from the band. But yeah, Mike's riffs are just untouchable back then. And Schmier's distinct vocals. And that bass, I mean, he's not quite like Lemmy bass style. He doesn't play his bass like a guitar, but great bass player too. It's in there. But check out tracks, some of my favorites on here for sure. Mad Butcher, and my favorite track on here is Satan's Vengeance. This one, easy to find if you want it on vinyl. High Roller does a killer job at these reissues, and definitely a band that they will reissue every couple of years. Their early catalog, right up till, I think, Live Without Sense and the Mad Butcher EP, which is another good one too. But here is Sentence of Death. Kind of that just raw, chaotic, not 100% produced, but man, I just love it. Sounds great. But anyways, there is 10 of my favorite EPs, metal EPs of all time, if you want to say my top 10 for sure. And again, there'll be stuff that I've missed, but point it out to me in the comments. And, make sure you let me know about a few of your favorites. Always love to hear from you guys. Hope you enjoyed that one. Until next time, stay heavy.